My name is Levi Fuller. I'm the administrative coordinator at Jack Straw Cultural Center. We're really pleased to be here with Chanee Choi, whose exhibit Remembrance Magma is in our new media gallery. So we have Chanee here all the way from Madrid to give her artist talk. If you are in Seattle or anywhere within driving or training distance, you should check out the gallery if you haven't already. Installation is really immersive and absolutely the kind of thing you need to experience in person. So I highly recommend it. You've got 2 more weeks. You can drop us a line, jsp@jackstraw.org, or give us a call, 206-634-0919 to schedule a time to come visit it. We do receive support for our artist residency programs, including the Jack Straw New Media Gallery program from the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, For Culture, King County Lodging Tax, Washington State Arts Commission, National Endowment for the Arts, Arts Fund, Rainier Foundation, Humanities Washington, and the National Endowment for the Humanities as part of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, and individual contributors. And if you want to know more about anything we're doing, you can visit us at jackstraw.org and join our email newsletter, and we would love to see you in person as much as we also love seeing you here on the internet. So with that, I will hand it over to Chanee.
Yep, thank you, Levi. And then, hi guys. I'm gonna just start to slideshow first. Okay, it was at the end. I think I might gonna need to sleep first. Okay, now I'm going at the beginning. Hello, nice to meet you. You guys are in Zoom event Artist Talk Now at the Jackstraw Cultural Center. It's 7 p.m. in Seattle, but unfortunately, I'm in Spain right now. It's 4 a.m. So I took many coffees, so hope I don't get asleep during the talk. I only know that I have had a side effect when I taught DXR the summer class 2021 synchronized class online when I was in Korea, which was like a 3 a.m. Teachings to 6 a.m. to that. I feel like the moment I took a lot of caffeine like right now, and then I remember I say something wrong I shouldn't say at the class. So in this time, if I do something looks like wrong, please stop me. Or if I can't answer your questions today, please be patient, because I can get it back to you the next day of the Spain when it's morning and after I take a breakfast. So let's not just try to be harsh, but I'm very open for it. My name is Chanee Choi, and I'm a PhD candidate in digital art and experimental media. It's called DX Arts for short, at the University of Washington, Seattle. I'm currently have a show Remembrance Magma at Jack Straw's Media Room. It's a dark gallery space, and I'd like to talk about this project. But before I start to talk about it, I briefly want to share my previous projects that I made in DXArt, because I have many other projects before DXArt, of course, but I would be a nurturing place to practice my art, because I knew that being surrounded by such a talented and diverse group of artists in my schools who are working in the field of new media art, and then who exposed me on many fascinating perspectives and the methodologies, and pushed me to develop in a way I could never do alone. So first work is Polaris. Polaris is not a Polaris. Yeah.
Chanee, sorry to interrupt. Or were you trying to share your screen? Because we're not
Yep.
seeing it. Oh yeah, we're not seeing it.
Okay, so oh, didn't I? Okay, I thought I did it at the beginning. Okay, it's my mistake. Thank you for
Oh yeah, sure. I wasn't sure. I mean, everything you were saying made sense without it. So
okay, makes sense. So But at least it started from beginning, right? It was like this. And then, okay, it's a Polaris. Oh, thank you for mentioning about it. I would have a big mistake. Polaris is an operatic sculpture installation of immersive light and interactive video, which creates a space that encourages us to discover the signal hidden within each of us that connects us. Or I know it doesn't sound very well, but let me explain more. Polaris tells the story of the Imjin War. Imjin War is like the 16th century Japanese invasion of Korea through the perspective of women from the year 2500 AD, using dance, interactive animation play like a Nintendo Wii game. All the characters are made in computer embroidery, it's like a stitches and sculpture. So it is just about the questions. This project was about questions and showing more operatic like installations, like how will our culture have developed 500 years from now. If you guys have any curious point or want to know more about, please check it about my website or DXR web pages. There is a lot of writings about this project. And then I think I have to move to the next project because we don't have pretty much time. It's Pandemic. Pandemic is a first-person 3D environmental art game about the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. This project was designed to bring awareness to the many incidents of discrimination, xenophobia, racism, and violence experienced by Asian Americans during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. Initially, I scanned the internet for videos of insults to Asians that had been recently uploaded, as well as interviews with victims of COVID-19 feared racist attacks, and mention of the Chinese virus on TikTok and other live video apps. I then mined this content for imagery, which was used to create a series of virtual reality rooms within a space. Each room functions as a level might in a more traditional video game, but in Pandemic, there is nothing to achieve or defeat. The player simply moves through the space of each room, observing. Okay, then I think I should just move to the next project. So if you guys have any questions or curious point about Pandemic, first please checking about the writings on my website and DXArt web pages. And if you guys have more, it's always welcome to ask me any questions. So the next project is Darkness. Did I pronunciation that right? Darkness is a 3D animated poem inspired by Wire Movement number 9, a poem by science fiction writer. Her name is Misha Naka. I learned a lot of things from this project. So my current dissertation project, Remembrance Magma, the animation, has actually many similarities to this project. So like how to do with the poem and how to deal with the animation storyboard, like a making process, like a 3D animation, like instead of trying to do camera shooting with the actual like real actors in a real space. So this Darkness video is on public, so you can just check it out on YouTube on my website. If you just click the name of Darkness, you can just directly watch the animation. This work is an expression of the frustration of desire and physical longing that we all experience as a human beings, as well as the fear caused by uncertainty about reality. This project was produced for the general examinations of my PhD program at the end of my third year. The purpose of the general examination is to assess the breadth and depth of the student's knowledge and critical analysis of major areas in the digital art field. The examination is also used to evaluate the student's potential to complete a doctoral dissertation successfully, including the development of the student's independent intellectual voice. Once shown the prompt, the student has only 7 days to complete their project. So I made this project in 7 days. After being given this poem, I directly contact to Misha, the author via email. Misha was she is very generously agreed to have FaceTime with me, and during our conversation, she explained to me which part of the poem was the most meaningful for her, like how she imagined it, and then like her techniques for assembling the poem. So after the consulting the conversation with her, I made a new poem using hers. I first wrote in Korea, and then I translated it into English. It took a while, so even I had to work with English teachers too, but it was really like a worth it, like a valuable time for me. To write the new poem, I omitted each word and meaning from Misha's Wire Movement number 9 and collected words that are similar to or related to these words. So I put all these words into small sentences and then rewrite them. So after printing it, I cut it again like a paper. I just cut them again with a pair of scissors, and then reconstruct it, like reorganize them. And the captions of the video audio narrative you can see is a new poem I made from this progress. So after making the new poem, I began sketching ideas, but after very few, I began animating in earliest because I only had 7 days. I choose to continue in Misha's cyberpunk style, but changed the scenario in order to create a more personal story, like suffusing it with my experience of losing my sense of reality during the pandemic lockdown. The main character is the person in the wooden box who present many experience of being trapped alone in lockdown. This part also relates to Misha's cage and a controlled ballet door. As the door in Misha's poem is manipulated and restricted by another, this character I made confines itself in a box. I imagined the cyberpunk city as Seoul in Korea, and the main character as a figure with a mirrored exterior without any color or characteristic, wearing a mask. Okay, so next project. This is the last one I'd like to talk about in my previous work. It's on Rear Window. Unreal Window is a real-time virtual animation inspired by the experience of confinement and virtual communication during the COVID-19 pandemic. The animation is a recording of a continuously existing AI environment created through machine learning. So the video's narration was produced by a machine learning system using the script of Hitchcock's Rear Window and a recording of James Stewart's voice. Unreal Window addresses the slippery sense of reality in a world of media consumption, Zoom meetings, and AI animation. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the loneliness is the same with the darkness. I made it in the same period too. So the loneliness produced from the sense of being monitored and fear, this painful absence of rapport that politeness dictates. We have to pretend not to feel the despair and creeping terror of not being able to connect with others physically. Their smell, their touch, their heat, and longing for that which can only be shared through physicality. So I wonder how far down this part of physical isolation and online communication we might go if this situation continue until I die. Then what would it mean for my identity? Who can I be under these circumstances? I asked myself where it is that I exist. If a part of the answer is into the digital, what does that mean for our understanding of AI? Okay, so finally, Remembrance Magma. It is an immersive virtual reality, also immersive animation addressing the poetics of a mind as it is dying of dementia. It has been shown at the Jackstraw Gallery, and then it will be showing until June 17, if my memory is correct. Um, so yes, so Remembrance Magma incorporates modern tech, cutting edge research on the aging brain, East Asian crafting aesthetics, and Korean shamanic traditions as it examines the nature of the brain as a sensor that desires data even as it slowly fades. Culturally intersectional remembrance explores the poetic and painful process of memory degeneration. So again, the goal of this project is to explore more deeply of nature of dementia beyond simply its medicalization. It seeks to provide a lens through which the confusion and suffering of our loved ones with dementia can be experienced as something as beautiful as it is excruciating. In preparations for the likelihood of my own early onset dementia, I have developed a poetic understanding of the process which finds an aching beauty in degeneration. The narrative of remembrance is the rumination of the inevitable chain of family and disease, centering first on my mother in Korea before moving back through our matrilineal heritage. Her mother and her grandmother, both of whom also had dementia, and then at last it moves into the present. Maybe it's to me. Remembrance was inspired by my family's history of dementia. Therefore, in order to fully elucidate the conceptual axis of this project, I will need to provide some personal history. When I was a child and my family visited my maternal grandmother's home, I was able to observe that she suffered from severe dementia. I also observed the complexity of my mother's feelings towards her. I could see in her facial expressions regret, resentment, and sadness. My mother didn't raise my mother. My grandmother didn't raise my mother, and she felt discriminated against in comparison with her siblings. So she didn't feel as much of an obligation to care of her when she began to get sick. I noticed then that my mother was worried that she would develop this disease as well, and I began to understand what that this is something passed down generationally. It appeared to be a disease that is passed down from my mother to daughter, and I realized that this process would bring dementia to me as well. When my mother developed the disease in her late 50s, its progress through the generations began to feel inevitable. I felt it is likely to be my fate to join them in short period of time. When she began to develop dementia in 2015, my mother visited the Seoul National University Hospital for a detailed examination, including an MRI, without telling our family in Korea. The word, the word dementia in Korea is 치매. 치매 means foolishness, and there is the perception that it is demeaning disease that causes people with dementia and their families to lose respect. Korea has a very communal culture in which people frequently compare themselves and their families with others because quite competitive. And my family was successful both socially and financially during that time. And she was concerned that her diagnosis would damage my family's social dignity and economic prospects. I can imagine the fear she must have felt. She must have felt when she received her diagnosis, and how that fear must have extended to me as her only daughter. If only she had told us her diagnosis when she received it, she could have begun treatments to slow the progressions of the disease. My mother's disease began to progress to the point where she could no longer hide it in 2017. I had already begun my doctoral studies in Seattle and was forced to watch from afar as the mother I knew began to slip away. When the pandemic began, my access to my mother's became even more limited due to travel restriction. I was experiencing feeling of guilt, regret, resentment, and fear for my own health. As of May 2022, my mother is currently in the final stage of the Alzheimer. Watching my mother die of dementia and knowing it is likely I will repeat the same pattern has caused me to consider the nature of my existence from a variety of diverse perspectives. I also began to feel differently about the time I have left. I want to live my life in a way that won't give me regret when the time comes to begin to fade out as she has done. I want to explore this situation with my artwork and find a way to transcend my fears that I can pass on and share with others. At the beginning of this project, I thought I would focus on the neuroscience behind dementia, considering how to use AI and machine learning to work cooperatively with a mind with dementia. However, my mother's illness progressed. I watched my father quit his job and dedicate himself to her care. I came to feel that relational aspects of the disease are much more interesting than the physical. I could understand what my mother was thinking just by looking into her eyes. She believed that my father would be able to understand her even once she lost her memory. This made me consider the issue of resonance, recognition, and the sublimity of love. I found that I don't feel a resonance with my mother anymore due to the 4 years I've been away. I feel like a bad daughter. I have many voice and video recordings of her, but it hurts me to hear them. She repeats same sentence and she's always expressing how much she loves me. And instead of keeping them to myself, where they were causing me to ache with shame and loneliness, I use them to make remembrance. So this project designed to help me interpret the distortion of memory and space between myself and my mother. I decided to approach memory from a literary perspective. The classic narrative form is an exceptional useful container for conceptual and emotional content because it is so familiar. Most people are very willing to suspend disbelief and open their minds within the bounds of this familiarity. When I read my mother's translation of WBEH poetry in Korean as a child, I found it boring and unattractive, to be honest. Um, but when I rediscovered his work in English after moving to United States, I realized how rich and beautiful his poetry really is. The fact that my mother loved him a long time ago gives my only enjoyment a sense of being limited out of time. And then I felt that his work would be the appropriate source of narrative for remembrance. So I created a new poem in English in collaboration with the AI texting generation program GPT-2. After feeding a volume of EH collective work into GPT-2, it produced a poem in EH style. So after printing it, I cut it again like what I did for the previous project Darkness. I cut them using a pair of scissors and then reconstruct it like what I did for the previous project. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. And then I made a new poem after I reorganized them. I divided 4 chapters of poem because all the poems the GPT-2 generated was very ambiguous. So I have to put them what depends on the concept it fits together, and then the 4th chapter was made. So this is the good example of the chapter 1, the poem. And then I used the text from this poem to create images using a text to image AI program, which ended up being exceedingly surreal. This was exceedingly welcome to me because I felt that surrealism is perhaps the most effective method of um, conveying the reality of the unconscious mind. Its ways of twisting, separating, and synthesizing the mundane and realistic objects or situations into the most surprising forms is very similar to elements of the function of human memory. The name of magma was came from the idea in one image of the result of the GPT-2 and then the text to image. So I was able to make the moving images from the generated picture. After each section of poem was translated into an image by GPT-2, I selected the most aesthetically successful and arranged them in order. I then began to storyboard, planning the scenes, timing, lighting, and sound in detail. At first, I used the storyboarding techniques of the film industry, but I found that this left quite a lot of room for explanations of dialogue, but was insufficient to record all the minute moving details necessary for animation characters. So I end up adjusting the techniques to allow me articulate the detailed movements of this animated film. 3D animation was the ideal format for this work because of the way the camera can move within the hexagonal space, the animation. It allows me to create a dreamlike perspective moving in ways unfamiliar to traditional cinema cameras. This kind of 3D animated world building in an amazing resource for artists and animators who don't have access to filmmaking crews, budget, and equipment. So this protagonist is patterned after images I found on my mother's and my own age. When I first modeled a 3D figure based on these images, I found I had rendered a character that seemed unrealistically perfect. So I adjusted her face to include aspects of myself from a photograph. And the character became a hybrid. So for the Jack Straw show, I had to think about best way to project things, installing my animation. It could be VR, it could be something different. But my original idea was a making a curved screen, like a giant screen. That is usually like projections, like projecting for the flight simulator. If you guys know about that kind of curved screen and flight, the game. But I end up to follow the same way that I've done at the Polaris, the previous project. I just made a separated, like divided three the videos from the wide one video after I record them, and then I try to make it fit to the word in Jackstraw and a customizing way. So that is how I did it, the Polaris, in the same way. So I need to talk about more clear about this remembrance project goal for the future. Actually, this remembrance project has been divided into two parts, magma and coral. So this one was original idea when I bring out Jackstraw at the beginning. The Remembrance was originally conceived as a live performance with an interactive VR animation that incorporates EEG sensor controls. However, due to the limit time I have available in this program, I found that the development of the technology for the EEG sensor controlled VR was overly ambitious. So I therefore limited the scope of my dissertation project to a non-interactive 3D animation to be screened as a video. I call this work Remembrance Magma. After I graduate, I will complete the expanded version of the work, editing the elements of EEG controls and multi-installations. So it's going to be my future project after this animation. It will be called Remembrance Coral. Finally, the dissertation project will also include my research into the nature of disability and its treatment within the arts. My own work focuses specifically on dementia and how it might be considered outside the context of its medicalization. So this work considered the topic of dementia not with the intention of seeking a physical remedy, but rather in order to recontextualize its experience into the realm of religion, poetry, and philosophy. Dementia is used as a lens through which to reconsider the nature of our morality. So, thank you. That is all I could say.
Thank you so much, Chanee. It was really wonderful to get that perspective. I see a raising hand. Aphrodite, did you have a question or a hello?
Oh, yeah. No questions. I just clapped. That was really Thank you so much, Chanee, for this artist talk. It was really like it's great to just hear about the process of the work after seeing it. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for
Yeah,
coming in.
I was really struck by the combination of, uh, things like poetry, which is something that humans have been doing for thousands or millions of years, and then your hand techniques of, cutting paper and putting things together, and then the super high tech stuff that is way beyond me understanding, and the way you combine all of those elements together. I was wondering, is poetry is such an important part of this? Is that something that you've connected with for a long time, and have you been writing for a long time, writing poetry, or?
So this is kind of new discovery. I found my talent from DX art, the practice in DX art, especially the general examinations.
Mhm.
I found it that I really like to organize and construct them after I got some of data, and then the result came out really interesting way. And then yeah, these structures I really appreciate from the department because I could able to learn. But before, I don't think I able to try, even though I like to reading a lot of poem. But I didn't try to write myself because I didn't think I was a good writer. Um, but didn't know there is a way I could build up in like such a card game. So
Yeah. And so it sounds like your mom read poetry. Did she also, was that kind of an important part of her life as well?
yeah, yeah, she loved poems. So she loved many poetry. So I remember in my when I was teenager, she purchased a lot of like a bi-weekly magazine of poem. It was very
Mm,
small book, and she stocked them up. Even though I'm not sure she read all of them, but she really liked to collect them and then put them on next to her bed, and then always getting a chance to read them as much as possible. But some of poem, it seems like she just tried to collect them a lot, and
mhm.
then that kind of things inspired me to try to more get to know about it. Even though when I was young, I didn't really like feel into it like as
Yeah,
much as my mom did, and now I know. So
yeah. Okay, one more thing, because we are Jackstraw, we are the sound people. That's our thing, and the sound scape of your installation, I feel like, is such a huge important part of it, and it's just so incredibly immersive. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you put that together. Um, it seemed like you kind of brought your own skills and tools to that. So
so I didn't expect it the sound would work very well because
mm,
I was actually feel a little bit, to be honestly, a little bit not confident about to doing, but I tried my best. I tried to find a lot of the open source first from the freesound.com. I didn't actually try to record myself in the places because first I wanted to get some the sound data of the volcanoes, and then it's not possible for me to go there for sure. Also, I felt I didn't have less experience to do a soundscape as well, so I collected them, and then I tried to put them onto the video first, and then I found it out the most of the volcano sound was mud, and then I was trying to find something similar to the mud, which is just the sound of the water. It could be a nature, it could be a something like a people just made it in their home using a sink, and then I mixed them up, and then the end of the scene that the woman is bleeding, the wounded woman bleeding, that scene was quite interesting. So I just keep going on the way I was trying to doing at the beginning to just continuously the same way, and then it seems it worked very well. And then to be frank, I think it looks really good even though it's a stereo the audio system, because the Jackstraw in the gallery have a really beautiful the sound systems in the spacious like like a more system with speakers in high ceiling, so it made it more possibility to feel more get immersive way with the visuals all the same time in synchronized way. So I I always like to say I was lucky. I'm lucky, and then also the sound I collected was really good. And then what I learned from the sound class in DxArt for beginners class, that I learned how to use the reverb and other effects to mix them up to try to change the original sound to the others. That really helped me too.
Well, if you ever want to come spend more time in the studios and play with more sound, we'd certainly love to love to work with you. But you did great, and I don't think you're lucky. I think you work really hard and you're really creative, and this is clearly the product of a lot of work, and I'm glad we got to show it here in our gallery. So people should definitely come out, make an appointment ideally to come visit the gallery and see the work in person. You got a little taste of it here, but it's really, you really have to see it in person to get the full effect.
Yeah, I hope